Okay. All right, everybody. The competition starts now. You have 90 minutes. So mediators, take it away.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for coming here today and for taking the time to come to this online meeting. I think it's brilliant that you've all come here and that we can use technology to bring everyone together and come to a solution for the issues that you've found here today. My name is Charles Brooke, but feel free to call me Charles or Charlie. I answer to all of them. And I lead over to Jolene, who will introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Jolene. Just to reassure everyone, please do not worry because me and Charles have worked together for many years and everything that he or I says, you may assume is said by us both. We promise to do our utmost best in serving as your mediators. Now, let us start with a quick round of introductions. You may call us by our first names. How would you like us to address you?
Hi, I'm Martin Pinn. You just call me by Martin.
My name is Cameron Bigoli. I'm Martin's counsel. You can just refer to me as Cameron.
Hi, I'm Jenny Carvalho, and you could call me Jenny.
And hello, my name is Vishnu. You may refer to me as such, and I am Jenny's counsel.
Great, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves, and thank you all for being here. So I'm just going to take a quick moment to just discuss the process of the mediation, and Jolene's going to help me do that as well. So I'm sure many of you know, but I'll go over it anyway. Mediation, we're really here today to use this mediation process to get to the core of the issues that you've been having. We don't want to sit here and debate legal issues, and we don't want to have this meeting be a contentious one. What we want to do is have this meeting be an opportunity for you to have an open and frank discussion about all the issues you've been having and how we can get to the heart of these issues and find ways to solve them that leave both parties happy and feeling that their underlying interests have been addressed. There are a lot of elements to a mediation, and we're going to talk about them now. Firstly, it's important to know that this is a voluntary process. You're all here today because you've chosen to be. And I think that's really, really positive, and it indicates that you're all interested in finding a solution. It's also important to know that this is a flexible process. So if any part of this process isn't working for you the way you'd like it to, then we can change it, and we can have a conversation about that and how it will happen.
This process is also confidential, which means that anything shared here will remain within the four walls of your computer screen. This process has no prejudice, which means that nothing will be decided before everything is decided, and nothing said here will be used against you in a court of law.
So as mediators, our role here today is essentially to facilitate this discussion. What we want to do is not tell you what to do. We're not going to help you find a solution by telling you the solution. We're going to help you find the solution by inviting you to ask each other questions, get to the heart of your issue, and find something that works for everybody. Along the way, we might make some suggestions and we might suggest some solutions, but fundamentally, you are all here today with the freedom to make your own decisions. And I think that's really important.
Yes, on that note, let us not beat around the bush. We understand that tensions run high and parties may not be in the best of terms. Please choose to think positively. In my culture, we say 危机之, which means that crisis brings opportunity. It is very encouraging that both parties have decided to move forward with an online mediation. And I urge everyone not to view this virtual mediation as a negative circumstance. Instead, you are innovators and forerunners in this changing world.
I think Jolene said it brilliantly there. This is, if nothing else, an opportunity, because you may find that you have more in common that you don't, and it will be an excellent opportunity for you to find out what that is and move on. Just before we get started, one quick ground rule of a Zoom meeting that I found is really helpful is that when you're not speaking, keep yourself muted. It seems that you're all doing that already, which is really positive. but just an idea. And then if you do want to speak, hopefully by unmuting yourself, that will be a sign to everybody that that's something you would like to do. And Jolene, do you have anything else to add before we get?
Yes, just quickly, if I could ask that everyone remains respectful during this conversation. This means not using abusive language or name calling, and also not interrupting one another when we are speaking. I also noticed that parties here come from different backgrounds. So sometimes the words we use may be a bit different. This, combined with the virtual setting of this mediation, may make it difficult for some of us to hear others. We would like to request that all parties speak a bit slower so it is easier for everyone here to understand. Myself and Charles, we will step in to clarify certain terms and phrases if necessary.
Thank you, Jolene. You said it brilliantly. I will now invite the requesting client to make those introductions and make his opening statement. If I could also ask you in doing so to confirm whether or not you have authority to settle here today.
Thank you, Charles and Jolene. Yes, I do have the authority to settle, and I would just like to thank the both of you for such a great explanation on the mediation process. And I feel extremely comfortable, especially in this new, unusual virtual mediation after that briefing you have given us. So thank you so much. And good day, everyone. As you all know, I'm Jenny Carvalho, the CEO of Extreme Holidays. Martin, it's great to see that you look well. I hope your family has been good too. I really miss your mom's fish and chips. I would firstly just like to thank you for agreeing to come to this mediation session. And I look forward to having a productive discussion with you that would see us resolving this matter amicably, leaving with both our interests fulfilled. Perhaps before we begin, for old time's sake, and maybe for those who are not so familiar with our history, allow me to share a little bit more about myself and my business. I was born in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal, and was extremely fortunate to have a family that was more than comfortable financially. I grew up not having to work for much, always being taken on family holidays to the neighboring European countries, and sometimes even a little further, such as to places like the USA and Canada. My parents also fully sponsored my university education at UCL, where I have many fond memories with you, Martin, and I hope you still treasure them as much as I do. However, as the saying goes, you really can't have everything in life, can you? And I really struggled with the lofty expectations that my parents have burdened me with, constantly reminding me that the only choice I had was to come back to Portugal once I graduated and become a doctor like the both of them. After all my parents have done for me, I felt like I owed it to them to heed their wishes. But that cost me you, Martin. And although mediation isn't backward looking, if there was one thing I could change about the past, this would be it. Looking back, I guess maybe if I had followed their advice and became a doctor, I would have been in a much different position than the one I am in today, since a COVID-19 struck world is much more favorable financially to a doctor compared to someone like me in the tourism and extreme sports industry. But oh well, I'm digressing again, so I should stop thinking on what could have been. There is really no use trying to change the past, and I guess this is why, the very reason why we are here at Mediation, to look to the future. Anyway, as I was saying, with every day that was spent in the hospital, it just made it clearer how a career in medicine was simply not for me. In fact, I found myself to be quite the thrill seeker. I realized that I had a deep passion for extreme sports and was hooked ever since I first got on a jet ski during that impromptu trip we took to the French Riviera while we were still studying. Eventually, I gathered the courage to confront my parents and tell them that medicine was just not the path for me. But unfortunately, they did not take this too well and told me that if I did not continue being a doctor at the hospital, there was just no place for me under their roof. I had no choice but to leave, and I was completely cut off financially. Martin, I hope you know I was stuck in a rut, but eventually I tried to pull myself together and get back on my feet. I thought to myself, If I could combine the two things I love most, travel and extreme sports, and somehow made a living of it, that would be pretty cool, right? And so with whatever money I had to my name, I did exactly that. I tried to turn my dream into a reality. And this is the story of how Extreme Holidays was born. And although my company is young, business expanded fast. And before we knew it, we were conducting operations outside of Portugal and even outside of Europe. However, that rapid progression turned on its head once the pandemic struck. And I'm sure that since you, Martin, are the CEO of your bank, you would know that when an economic crisis hits, and in this case, coupled with the world health crisis as well, one of the first few things consumers will cut back on would be travel. So I hope you understand that this directly affects my business. Martin, when we struck that deal, I was greatly heartened for your company's huge holiday planned in Lisbon. It was almost as if fate had played a part in reuniting us, no longer as two UCL students, but as two young founding CEOs of the respective companies in this business deal. I have so much respect and admiration for your intelligence, even since the first few days I've met you. And your refreshing leadership style never ceases to amaze me. Your hands-on approach and the way you motivate your team is something I greatly identify with, and I see a lot of alignment in our philosophies. So as you know, this company, Extreme Holidays, is my baby, and I'm sure you feel the same way about R2FC Bank. And I understand that this pandemic certainly hasn't been easy on your business as well. So moving forward, I believe that currently, what is most important for the both of us is to steer our companies out of the storm that is the COVID-19 pandemic. And therefore, I sincerely hope that we will be able to help each other through these trying times. And I believe we have already taken that first step, as mediation is the perfect place for achieving this. Perhaps my counsel, who handles the company's accounts, could now provide the details and numbers regarding the matter at hand and share some of my interests that I would like to see be addressed today. So Vishnu, if you could please take it away.
Thank you, Jenny. Hello, everyone. I'm Vishnu, Jenny's counsel. I've been working with Jenny and Extreme Holidays since its beginnings 5 years ago. As an aside, I'm also a frequent customer of Extreme Holidays, being somewhat of an adrenaline junkie myself. For these reasons, I myself have developed an attachment to the firm and to its employees. And the success of the firm over the past 5 years has been a source of immense personal pride. Although, of course, the credit must go to Jenny and her team. I share the pain Jenny feels as a result of this crunch caused by the pandemic. Martin, I hear you are also the sort of leader who operates on the ground. Thus, I'm sure you are no stranger to that feeling of loss that cuts deeper than any feeling associated with a mere loss of revenue. Nevertheless, our revenue is vital to our survivability as a firm. Jenny has already had to lose many of her customers and staff as a result of the pandemic. Her losses and yours, Martin, seem to mirror each other. Thus, a primary interest that Jenny and Extreme Holidays have is to safeguard the source of so many employees' livelihood, which have already taken such a big hit as a result of the virus. I have advised Jenny in this regard that the cancellation policy clause in the contract is more than strong enough to support any legal defense in court. However, we believe this eventuality will not materialize, since Martin, you have been so gracious to accept Extreme Sports' invitation to this mediation. Therefore, as Charles mentioned in his opening, I hope we can set the legal issues aside today, as they have no place at the mediation table. Instead, Jenny hopes to engage in a frank and open dialogue with you, Martin, so that each party better understands the other's interests, so that we can devise mutually beneficial strategies to best aid both of these firms in these times of trouble. We have all suffered as a result of the pandemic, and my client strongly believes that our shared victimhood should unite us. We should not let it drive us apart. The only way to combat a complex problem is with creative, nuanced solutions, and that is what we have come to discuss. If the other famous Harvard dropout who has done so well in tech is anything to go by, I think we can expect a number of highly creative solutions put forward at this session. Generally, Jenny is interested in discussing two issues. Firstly, she's interested in discussing the refund of the holiday sum. And secondly, as she has mentioned, she's interested in having a discussion on the future cooperation between your businesses so that both can survive this pandemic. Doubtless, these issues are not altogether separate, and discussing one of them will probably inevitably shade into a discussion of the other. I trust in the competence of Charles and Jolene in these situations in laying down signposts in a timely manner so we may better appreciate our positions. Now, we'd very much like to hear from you, Martin.
Thank you. Good morning or good evening, depending on where we are in the world. I just want to start by thanking Charles and Jolene for taking the time to be here today and help us out with this, with this issue. I know we're in crazy times, and I know myself and Jenny, I know we're very grateful for you to be here. Jenny and Vishnu, thank you for laying all that out. Jenny, it's great to see you as well. I know it's been some time. Unfortunately, things haven't worked out so well, but like you said, maybe it's fate that we've been brought back together, and we could figure this all out together. As you said, both of us being young startup CEOs, this COVID-19 crisis has hit us both hard. I treasure my bank just as much as you treasure your company. I love my staff, and we were really, really excited about this trip. I mean, I have a very young staff that we love to have fun, and Vishnu, as you said, hands-on. I love to be there with my staff and do stuff that keeps them motivated. And we thought, what a better way than with extreme sports. I mean, you can't beat it. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and it's run a terror on my business. The income is down roughly 75%. I've had to furlough 325 of my staff members. It's just been very hard, and similar interests is I really want to protect my employees. I don't want to have to let anybody go. I want to keep this going, and I want my business to flourish just as much as yours. So the big thing is definitely the refund. Obviously, to keep my business afloat, to keep the bank going, we need some sort of capital. But I do want to reassure you that we do want this trip to happen. At some point in the future, this trip for my staff and my bank will still happen. Unfortunately, it's all conditioned on when travel is safe and when we can all get there and enjoy this amazing trip. But unfortunately, just in the short term, we need some help to survive. And that almost $2 million that we've paid for this trip is huge to keep the business going. Right now, and I do say short term just because I want to be as frank as possible and as upfront as possible with you. The government is assisting us right now while we're on this furlough. So they're paying some of my employees' salaries. However, that ends in November. So after that, it's kind of up to me to have to cover those costs of my employees somehow. However, in January, we're expected to receive some grants from the government. But again, that period between November to January, it could all, just go downhill, and we're not really sure how to cover the costs there. So again, I'm trying to reassure you that we want this trip to happen. Everything's going to go as we've already planned. I want your business to take off just as much as mine, but in the short term, we just need some sort of help to keep our business afloat. So I'm hoping that we're able to work this out today. It seems like, Vishnu and Jenny, you have both come here ready to do the same thing. And I'm excited about what we can try to come up with together. And, let's take our businesses to the next level. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it to my counsel. He has a few words to say as well. But thank you, Jenny, for coming here today. And hopefully we can work this out.
Thank you, Jay. Really appreciate those remarks. Thank you, mediators, for being here today. Again, really interesting times we're in right now. I'm glad we could all get together on Zoom and we could all take time out of our days to sit here and really get to the bottom of this issue and come up with a solution that would be mutually beneficial to both parties. As both, Jenny and Martin have stated, this is an unprecedented time. There's not much that we could have foreseen about this, and not many people expected the entire world to shut down. As Martin had mentioned, our main concern here and my client's main concern here is to be able to keep the R2FC bank alive. There's a certain timeline that we must discuss today. There's certain financial matters that we must discuss today. And I really do have a positive outlook on this situation, looking at it from a broad view. There's a lot of overlapping concerns here. A lot of things I heard you say in your intro, Jenny, stuff like an amicable solution that'll be beneficial to both parties. You're going through financial struggles as well. You've lost some clients and you want to safeguard your employees' livelihoods. That's pretty much everything that Martin has explained to me that he's concerned about too. So I think we already have some pretty positive outlooks in terms of what we need to discuss and what the goals are for today. Now, regarding what Vishnu said about the legal strength of the refund and the contract, and how mediation isn't really the place to argue about legal theories and what might happen in court down the road. I completely agree with you, Vishnu. Mediation really isn't the most proper place for the legal arguments to happen. However, being counsel, we do believe that the courts will see this as a unforeseeable and uncontrollable situation in these strange times. And that would usually lead to the cancellation of a contract, which would be, Jenny not having to perform on the contract and provide these services, and my client getting a refund for, whatever he's paid for. But that being said, I do believe that we can come to a mutually beneficial solution today. At the same time that I want to protect my client and keep his business afloat. I know that he's expressed many times to me that you and him have had a long-standing relationship, and that he wants to make sure Extreme Holidays stays afloat through all this as well. And like you mentioned earlier, you're both in this storm together, and it would be much easier for you both to work together and pilot this boat out of the storm. But it's going to take both parties to come to the table and really understand what both companies need in the short term in order to survive this pandemic. I'm very hopeful for this mediation, and I really do believe both companies can come out of this running. And actually, as Jolene mentioned, we are in a crisis, and this is an opportunity for both of you to separate yourselves from the rest of the pack, from the rest of your class, from the rest of the entrepreneurs that are in the same field as you. It really is an opportunity, and I do see it as an opportunity here. So thank you all for being here, and I'm very excited to get this conversation going.
Thank you, everyone, for so brilliantly setting out your positions. I think, to summarize really what I've heard, is quite a few shared interests between you all. It seems you, both parties, have been awfully affected by COVID-19, and today could potentially be a brilliant opportunity to try and mitigate those damages that have gone on, and try and help both parties to help themselves and each other to find a way to save these businesses and help them thrive in this post-pandemic world that we're now living in. It seems I'm taking, which I didn't know, is that there was a pre-existing relationship here, and I think that's really brilliant. And it seems that that was a overall mostly positive relationship. And I'm hoping that that means that there is a basis of trust that we can work on here. more so than would exist in a normal mediation. And I hope that with that in mind, both parties can build on that and know that they are in a safe space where they're capable of helping each other. I've heard talk from both sides about the possibility of a refund, and to summarize what I think I've heard is it does seem that's something that Jenny may be willing to offer if that is an agreement that can be come to. And that seems that's something, Martin, that you need and would be very, very helpful for your business. I'm also hearing from Martin's side that you are very interested in having that long-term holiday, which will definitely help Jenny's business in the long run. But that's really, really positive. It seems that both parties have come in today with the right mindset to help each other and to help each other to help you as well. I'm really happy with what I've heard from both the council, that they're willing to, for the most part, set aside legal arguments here today. And I think that's really positive because that's what we're here for. Jolene, do you have anything to add that I've missed?
No, I think Charles put it very well. From your opening statements, it is very clear that there is a deep respect and a lot of friendship and between the parties. And I think this bodes very well for the session coming up. Perhaps at this point, Charles, you could lead us in setting the agenda. So before Charles shares his whiteboard, I just want to remind everyone that the screen is going to expand. So just don't be shocked. Charles, please.
Thank you, Jolene. So yes, what we want to do is really set a good structure for this meeting so that we can have a clear, coherent way of going forward. But really, I want to listen to you and hear what it is that you want to talk about first. So if I invite the clients or the council to begin by naming any particular topics that they may want to begin by talking about.
Yes, if I may, I think definitely a big one is, a refund or some sort of, basically the monetary side of things. I know that that's going to be a huge thing. And then as well as the relationship, encompassing the future of both of our businesses, working together and things like that. Those are definitely two major points. Cameron, I'm not sure if I've missed one that we talked about.
No, as far as what we're concerned here is basically the refund. There's a lot that can go into that discussion, and I believe timing is a very important thing to make sure we touch on inside of that discussion. And then the relationship for the future, that's a pretty open topic that our clients will probably end up discussing more than the council. So that agenda looks good to me so far, depending on how it looks for Vishnu and Jenny as well.
Okay, so Jenny and Vishnu, are these terms okay for you? Would there any more you'd like to add? Would you like to adapt any of the wording? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, so
Thank you.
In general, we do see eye to eye on this agenda, but perhaps I know Vishnu is really a master of the details. So perhaps in terms of reframing these headers into a more digestible format which offers the entire table here a little more clarity, perhaps you could assist us on this.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. I'd like to address mainly, I guess, the first point. The issue of a refund is a solution towards ensuring your business's short-term survival. Am I hearing that correctly, Martin? Am I right so far?
Yes. The refund is definitely a short-term thing, just to keep us afloat until we can get past this horrible issue, and then plan some more trips.
Okay, thank you for confirming that. So maybe if you are agreeable, I'd suggest renaming the first item on the agenda to short-term survival of our firms. And I think this draws a nice parallel to this. This will then lead on quite seamlessly to the second point, which is about flourishing of our two firms in the long term. So I think this ties in well with Cameron's concern about timing as well. So here we can see a clear linear flow.
Yeah, I mean that looks great to me. As Charles and Jolene, mentioned in their intros, I know this is flexible as long as we, understand what's all in, each one of our talking points. I'm definitely agreeable to those agenda points.
Okay,
That's
so
great, Martin. Thank you.
from what I'm hearing is
Charles, please.
we've identified two main topics, which is essentially short-term survival and long-term flourishing, that you've agreed on those terms. Are we comfortable that everything that is wanted to be discussed comes under those terms? And would you like to discuss them in that order?
From what I have discussed with Jenny before this mediation session, we recognize, as I mentioned in my opening, that many of our issues in these separate agendas would shade into each other. So it's more of a continuity. And so I think it is, and that's why in my opinion, this seems to be an apt agenda, because some of the issues that we discuss under short term will definitely carry on to the long term.
That sounds brilliant.
Are you okay with that?
Oh, absolutely, Vishnu. I think you couldn't have put it better. And it just makes sense that we discuss the agenda chronologically, because there are in fact many overlaps between the short-term and long-term agenda points that need to be discussed at this table today. So back to you, Charles.
Great, well, thank you. I just wanted to confirm, Martin, are you happy with everything that's been discussed in this agenda going forward?
Yes, absolutely. I agree with Jenny and Vishnu that it's, all of it's going to tie together. A lot of what's going to happen in the short term is absolutely going to roll right into the long term. So I'm agreeable to it.
Okay, fantastic. So what I'll do now is I'll take down the whiteboard and I'll put these in the chat so that we can see each other better. And Jolene and I, as it goes along, will try and just guide you to highlight which points you're talking about if it feels like you're moving away from the discussed agenda point. If you feel you're getting onto long-term issues when that wouldn't be appropriate, then Jolene and I may intervene and direct you back to short-term. But if that is something that you would like to talk about at that time, then tell us and we'll leave that to you. Like we say, it's a flexible process. Jolene, do you have anything to add at this moment?
No, I think like Vishnu said, we can start by discussing the short-term plans. I think, Martin, you shared a bit about how you would still be looking for the refund of the down payment. Maybe you would like to start us off?
Sure. Just to elaborate on it a little more, like I said, currently the government is helping with payroll. They cover a portion of our payroll, but the program that they've instituted, it ends in November. So from November on, I have to try to keep the business afloat. And, unfortunately, we have no idea when this is going to end, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I'm not sure how long I'm going to have to, cover these expenses without my income coming back up. A lot of my business is premised on credit card transactions. I get a percentage of every transaction. But since COVID, those transactions have just plummeted and cash has proven to be king, and it's had that huge effect. So in the short term, I have to try to figure out how to cover these expenses. But as I mentioned, it's really from November till roughly January when we're expected to receive some federal grants to continue helping with other expenses. But that short term, I'm not really sure how we're going to go ahead and cover that.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So what I gather is there is a 2-month period in which your income, your source of funding basically is seems to be empty. And I'm sure you would agree this is the situation that many businesses are facing. Their sources of revenue and income have taken a huge hit, and their employees employees have to be laid off, furloughed, retrenched. I'm just asking this out of curiosity because our firm has tried to adapt to these wild times, and we have tried to expand our businesses we've tried to expand our business horizons and venture into new areas. So I'm just wondering if there's been any similar efforts on that front going on at your.
As far as expansion, I mean, I of course want to, open some more branches in other countries. But I've really just tried to figure out ways to boost the credit card sales. That's about as much as I can do right now to keep business going. Not really much else as far as trying to expand the business opportunities at this point, because I'm kind of limited. If I may ask, had any success so far with expanding your businesses, Jenny, or trying to come up with ways to cover your expenses? Kind of what, I guess the broader question is more of like, what's the financial position for you right now? Just so I can kind of understand the potential of this refund or short-term kind of refund.
Thank you, Martin. If maybe Jenny would like to address that question, being the CEO.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vishnu. So Martin, unlike many other mediations, we have come to this table with a pre-existing relationship, and there's already a deep sense of trust at this table. So if I may, I'll just be totally upfront with you. The COVID-19 pandemic could not have come at a worse time for my company. This is precisely the high season for extreme sports, and the lockdowns and all that are not helping my business at all. And in fact, for the past 4 months, I've had no income whatsoever. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that I'm unable to repay the loan, but that does not mean that you will be unable to cover these costs of yours, especially with respect to the period between November to January, if I'm hearing correctly. So actually, before this mediation session, Vishnu and I, we have been brainstorming on what possible solutions or paths we could possibly take in order to help you address these issues you're facing and keep both our businesses afloat. So perhaps Vishnu, you could share with them the more precise details of what we have discussed earlier.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. We, Martin and Cameron, here's out. This was more of a rough brainstorming session, and before we finalize anything, we definitely like to hear your input because you are involved. When we were researching on what could be done about the situation, we came across this policy which Portugal has recently initiated, called the Don't Cancel, Postpone vouchers. Portugal has a Don't Cancel, Postpone initiative where they encourage tourists to defer their travel rather than cancel them. And I think as a side note, this leads back to your desire that you expressed to have that fun weekend once this whole situation has boiled over. In slightly more detail, the Portugal government will issue vouchers valued according to how much the tourist has spent at their travel agency. And these vouchers apply to travel scheduled between March 13th and September 30th. So basically what I'm saying is you qualify. And these vouchers are valid until 31st December 2021. And after that, if you do not travel, they can be cashed in for a full refund. What I'm trying to say here is until the end of 2021, the Portugal government will issue vouchers equivalent to the sum that you have paid, meaning the approximately 2 million that you have paid. I understand that this does not address your immediate concern of a refund because it's the refund will only come in 2022. So on that note, we were also exploring the possibility of starting an immediate joint business venture with you. The reason I previously asked about your plans for any expansion is because, as I've mentioned, we have our own plans and we have gotten a loan from the Spanish government to expand our business into 5 different countries. And this loan amounts to 25 million euros. What I am thinking here, and Jenny and I were discussing was that if you would join us on this business venture, and tell me what you think about this proposal before I really go into what the venture could be. If you could join us in this business venture, possibly we may be able to, in a sense, share that loan with you because we would be a joint venture. And we are hoping that this loan could offset some of your immediate concerns with cash flow and liquidity. So please tell me what you think.
Thank you for that explanation, Vishnu and Jenny. That does clarify a lot of questions that Martin and I have regarding the financial situation of Extreme Holidays and where we can move forward with this discussion so that both our clients' needs and interests are met through this. So what I heard you say is that the government of Portugal is handing out don't cancel, postpone vouchers, which can be refunded after the end of 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And then I heard you also elaborate on a joint venture based on a loan that you received from the government in order to alleviate some of the short-term financial issues that both of our clients are having at the moment. Is that also correct?
Yes, they have issued the loan to us. Of course, there is, as we go into the details, there will be interest that we have to pay for the loans. And this is all contingent upon you, Martin, joining Jenny on this joint venture. But yes, Cameron, you've got.
Thank you. Thank you so much for clarifying that. As far as the don't cancel, postpone vouchers, I think that's something very interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up because I think that does actually, go towards both our clients' introductions and how they mentioned that they still want this trip to happen. I do believe, Martin, as he said, he really values the culture that he has inside of the bank, and he really values the employees. A lot of the days that we've talked together, he just mentioned how the morale has been down and how it's just been so tough for him to see his family, struggling through all of this. So I think that's a definite possibility to keep on the table. I'm glad you brought it up because I think that's what Martin wants to do is to eventually have this trip and to get the morale back up so that, business does end up rolling once everything opens back up. As far as the joint venture, I would really actually love to explore that option a lot deeper. I know Martin is shaking his head over there, and I can see the wheels turn and the businessman, and I can see Jenny smiling as well. I think that's a great idea. I think we should really explore that, and just to make sure my clients' needs are taken care of in this time. When do you think that joint venture loan money would be available? Because as Martin mentioned, our main concern here is once November hits and all of the employees come back off of that furlough, there's going to be a major payroll expense without much income coming in. And Martin doesn't want to let anyone go. He wants to make sure that everyone is still going to be able to have a livelihood, like Jenny mentioned in her intro, and make sure everyone is taken care of. So is that a long-term loan that you're receiving, or have you already received the loan, and how would that work in terms of sharing it with Martin?
Sorry, and also I really just wanted to add as well, and I'm sorry if I didn't do this in my intro when I was explaining everything. In January, those grants we're expecting as well, those are conditioned from the government on every employee still retaining their job. So just so you have a complete understanding, the full picture is that my entire payroll will still be there. It's not like I'll have a smaller payroll because I could let people go. It's all conditioned on every single employee retaining their position, which of course I don't want to let anybody go. But again, just in the interest of being as upfront as possible, I just want to let you know that.
Yes, so Thank you, Martin and Cameron. I really hear you, and I'm really encouraged that we have really made some significant strides in terms of satisfying our interests at this table today. But as much as I would like to answer your questions, I feel that a lot of information has been said. So perhaps if Charles or Jolene could summarize for us and maybe even list these several concerns that Cameron and Martin want address, perhaps on the chat or the whiteboard, that would provide, I think, some clarity for all of us. And that way I would answer all the questions that needed to be answered, and I wouldn't be leaving anything out for the benefit of both parties. Is that agreeable to you guys? Does that sound good?
Yeah, so I also see that many options and a lot of numbers and dates have been thrown out. Perhaps Charles could share his whiteboard, and we would take down the dates and the times and the numbers that have been introduced so far. All right, so from what I heard from Martin especially, the period that your company is between grants would be from November this year to January next year. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right. And Vishnu and Jenny, you mentioned Portugal's don't cancel, postpone system, where vouchers would be valid for plans that were in March and September, between March and September, and would be valid for till 31st December 2021, after which it would be converted to a cash repayment.
That is perfect. That's exactly what I said.
All right. And just so we are all on the same page, Vishnu and Jenny also raised the idea of a joint business venture, which would qualify both parties for a total loan of $25 million. And would be, this joint business venture would help the parties expand to 5 different countries. From what I understand and heard from Cameron and Martin, they were asking about when this loan would be released to both Vishnu and Jenny. Jenny, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Jolene. As a matter of fact, we have received this $25 million loan from the Portuguese bank, and the money is with us already. So, Martin, I'm ready whenever you are to begin this joint venture. So what do you think about this?
Sorry, can I jump in here really quickly and just clarify? Jolene mentioned that the the business venture would qualify parties for this 25 million loan, but you've just said that you already have it. Can we get some clarity on that? Because it's unclear whether that is something that is contingent on both parties being involved, or if that's something that you could act on by yourself, Jenny. Can I ask you about that quickly?
Yes, no problem, Charles. So to make things a bit clearer, the 25 million is already with me, but it is not contingent on, this loan is not contingent on a partnership with Martin and his bank. So perhaps maybe since my counsel is a bit more articulate than I am, maybe he could explain this to make sure everyone's on the same page. Vishnu, could you please help everyone out?
Thank you, Jenny. And you are fooling no one when you say I am more articulate than you are, as I'm sure Martin can attest. Anyway, to the point. Yes, you are correct, Jenny. The 25 million is not something that we will qualify for. We have already received that figure, and our main reason for bringing this up is because there's no such thing as a free loan. Am I right, Martin? And this means that there is interest to be paid. And given our dire financial situation that Jenny has gone over, we are struggling to pay this interest because it is substantial, to say the least. It is $15,000 a month to be paid over the next 25 years. Now this totals to slightly over $4 million over 25 years. And the part of the reason why we are
I definitely like the idea. I'm not sure how much of the details of the joint venture you're able to, explain during this mediation, but if you're able to expand on what the joint venture would be, because I'm of course always interested in something that's going to grow the business and flourish somehow, and I would love to potentially partner up with Jenny on this. Whatever ways that we can help each other's businesses. I had a couple ideas on incentives where both of our businesses can sort of refer each other in a way, or booking yearly or semi-yearly trips. But the idea of a joint venture is nice, but I just, if you're able to expand on the details of what it would be a little bit more, that would be great.
Yeah, so thank you, Martin. If I may elaborate on what this joint venture exactly entails. So from our previous discussions, I believe we share the common interest of expanding our businesses and to many different countries. So one thing that we took this loan for was to expand our business, Extreme Holidays, into 5 different countries. So we felt that since your business is primarily fixated on credit cards, perhaps we could explore a certain partnership with like a travel package deal with your credit card, perhaps. How does that sound? Are we on the same page here?
Yes, I like the sound of that. I'm just kind of thinking right now. I also have a couple ideas as far as if we were able to do something like this, because I still want to try to plan these trips with my company and hopefully encourage other banks or other companies to do this as well, where there's some sort of significant discount, or where I can do this yearly, but I don't have to pay the full price. If we're in sort of a partnership, it's almost kind of half and half. You know what I mean?
If I might just jump in here quickly, I think now I have a couple of questions that I'd like to speak to Martin about privately. So if it was okay with Jenny and Vishnu, could I call a quick private meeting with them? Jenny, is that okay?
Yes, please, Charles, go ahead.
Thank you. Martin, is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Session 2.
I will send Team A into a breakout room for 7 minutes.
Sorry, Brian, before you send them to the breakout room, can I just remind and maybe just give the other parties who are waiting outside, so Jenny and Vishnu, some food for thought. So I know that many options have been thrown out so far. So while you are waiting, maybe you could think about how you feel about the options that have been presented and how you would like to progress during this mediation. We may discuss this during your private session as well. So now, thank you, Brian. I think we are ready for the caucus.
Okay, so I'm sending, once again, just so I'm totally clear, I'm sending Team A into a breakout room.
No, sorry, you're sending Team B into the breakout room and keeping Team A in with the mediators.
Thank you for the clarification. Just a moment.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, Team B is going into the breakout room now. And there'll be 7 minutes. I'll give you a 1 minute warning. You guys good?
I think just seems Vishnu's still somewhat in the room.
Tina. There he goes.
There we go. Thank you very much, Brian. So Martin, the reason I've called this caucus now is because I'm concerned. I have a couple of questions about your immediate survivability of your company, and I'm concerned that Jenny and Vishnu, they are coming in with really good suggestions, but my concern is that they don't tackle your immediate concerns. So I wanted to ask you a few questions about those, and perhaps raise a few points of discussion that you may want to approach Jenny with. Firstly, I am aware that you have, I believe you said 325 workers on furlough. Was that the correct number at the moment?
Yes, 325 out of my roughly 500 staff.
Brilliant. So I'm aware, I have the privilege of being a British lawyer, so I'm very familiar with the UK furlough system. I'm aware, you said that the grant you'll receive in January is contingent on how many of those you'll retain. What is your current likelihood on being able to retain those? What is the current financial situation regarding that?
So long as I'm able to work out some sort of refund or something, or short-term payment from Jenny for those couple months, I should be able to retain everybody. Again, it's conditioned, the grant in January is conditioned on 100% retention. So it's really just those couple months. If I can just cover the expenses, then I plan on keeping everybody. I don't want to let a single person go.
Okay,
Right.
and sorry, Cameron.
If I may, just to further clarify, I do believe that the loan that they mentioned they received, that $25 million, if we can use some of that to cover the expenses of the payroll for the next few months, just until that grant money comes in, and then that grant money could be used to pay back that amount and help pay that interest that they were mentioning was a major concern for them. It was quite a hefty sum per month.
It was, yeah.
So yeah, once we get into January, my client should be able to help with that cost as well.
And I think, just to clarify a little bit, the joint venture, it's a great idea. I think it's something that I'm interested in. But because of the $15,000 a month, I don't know, we don't know how long COVID's going to last. So say come, January, I get that grant and then it lasts another 5-6 months. I'm just kind of hesitant on that. So I don't know if, that's something I might have to go back and look at, but we can keep it on the table and definitely discuss it.
Yeah, I think you both seem to have identified a similar problem that I have, which is that I think the business venture sounds like a great idea, and it's really good that you're on board with that. But your immediate concern, I believe, seems to be the immediate survivability and the receiving the grant. It seems, Cameron, I think you put it very well, that they have that money that could be used to keep the staff on payroll for those 2 months. And if I'm understanding correctly, it seems that if you did that, once you get to January, you would then have enough money, potentially, I'm assuming, to run this holiday that you seem very inclined to do. So perhaps that is something you need to mention to them, and this business venture could be a more long-term suggestion. Jolene, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to clarify, you mentioned that you need to pay the wages from November till January. So for all 500 staff, so how much will that look like? Do you have a sum in mind?
I don't have the numbers in front of me on that. I just know that even with if I were to get the full $2 million or roughly $2 million refund for the trip that I paid so far, it still wouldn't cover all of my expenses, but at least it would cover the crucial expenses, such as, the remaining payroll and stuff like that. So even if I got the whole thing, I would still be short.
All right. So I will take that. I'll note that down. Do you have any concerns with the proposal that is currently on the table with the joint venture?
The biggest concern is, of course, the $15,000 a month. I don't know. Again, kind of like I mentioned, we could solve the short-term problems, but then in February or March, if COVID is still running rampant, then both of us are now trying to figure out how to cover that $15,000 a month. So that's my biggest concern right now, with just jumping in. Of course, I want to jump into any business that I think would be great. And if we weren't in COVID, I would have no questions as to jumping into this. But because of the uncertainty, I'm a little hesitant.
Okay, well sorry, Cameron.
Thank you. That is exactly my concern as well. Being Martin's counsel is basically the liability going forward and the uncertainty with COVID. Just joining into a joint venture with this company based off of one conversation and locking my client into further expenses when we don't even know if he can make payroll. It's a big concern for me. So if we can just hash this joint venture out and make sure that the payroll is covered for the next couple months, then I do believe this relationship could be beneficial, but it does need to be discussed further.
That sounds great. Well, I think we're about to have the other team back in. So perhaps moving forward after this private meeting, you raise this concern of the uncertainty about the joint venture. And perhaps, like we've talked about, the possibility that if they were to use that loan to help keep your staff on payroll, you would then have a significant grant in return. That seems to be the outcome of this conversation. And perhaps when you make that clear to them, there may be a more from a place of more mutual understanding, both parties can then use that to find a deal that you seem happier with, that doesn't have as much of this uncertainty that comes with this joint venture. Or perhaps you can talk about it in more detail. But I think it's important that these concerns are raised with them when they get back in the room. Martin, how do you feel about that?
Yes, I definitely think so. I think that's a great idea.
Great. Thank you very much, Jenny. And is Vishnu back in yet? No, not yet.
Vishnu, are you back?
I think he's just loading into the room. I see his name.
Yeah, I think he's coming in now. There we go, Vishnu's back. Great. So thank you very much, Jenny and Vishnu, for taking a moment outside. I'll leave the conversation now for you. I believe Martin may have something he'd like to talk to you about.
Martin, if it's okay, may I just clarify some things about the business venture, because I realized I wasn't being very clear before the private session was called, and I hope you understand, since this idea is still in its infancy. So our dear mediator Jolene gave us some homework in our separate session to sort of really think about our options being generated. So Vishnu and I really used these few moments to crystallize what exactly it is we want out of this venture. And I would just like to share it with you in 3 different stages. So firstly, what would be our vision for this joint venture? Secondly, how it will be beneficial for us, meaning Extreme Holidays. And lastly, why it would be beneficial for you, your bank. So allow me to explain the vision that we have. So essentially, I just have 2 things: geographical expansion and operational expansion. And how it's beneficial to us? Well, given the COVID climate, tourism isn't really anywhere near its highest. And so we feel that expanding the business will be good, but our efforts would be specifically targeted at local markets to combat this drop in tourism. And lastly, why it is beneficial for you? It's just my Zoom connection is unstable. Did you guys manage to hear what I said?
I heard everything okay. Can we confirm that everyone else did?
Yes, I heard everything.
Hello, Ryan. Are you still with us?
Yes, Vishnu, I hear you.
Is your
It
connection
seems
okay?
Jenny and Vishnu might be having connectivity. Jenny and Vishnu, can you both hear us okay?
I can hear everything, but Ryan seems to be texting me and saying that his connection has some problems. So maybe while he remedies these issues, I may be able to build on his 3rd point, I think, where he left off, which is, I'm sure, what you are interested in, Martin, which is benefit to you. Well, fintech is a growing industry, and more people are using cashless payments. Like you said, cash is king currently, but not for long. As we expand, we'll have a large number of transactions across many different countries. And because of this, we are looking for a sort of medium, if you will, to facilitate these transactions. And we were wondering if you would be interested in being this medium and in providing your fintech services. So of course, by facilitating these transactions, you would get your, I imagine you take a small commission. I think that is the practice for fintech. Of course, you can enlighten me on this, but we are, whatever your usual fee is, we are willing to pay it. And this is how I think it'll be beneficial to you.
So Martin, before you respond to that, I'm just concerned that Jenny didn't get a chance to finish what she was saying when she lost connection. So Jenny, is there anything you wanted to just finish off with before Martin replies to Vishnu?
Oh yes, Charles. I think my counsel Vishnu summed it up perfectly, and this is the reason why I've chosen such a stellar lawyer to be my company's in-house counsel.
Yes, Charles, if I may address that concern a little bit. I just gave Jenny a brief summary. I texted her as to what I covered, and yeah, as you can hear, she has nothing left to add. So we'll be very interested in Martin's thoughts on this.
Yes, I definitely have a couple concerns. I know my counsel does as well. I'm going to let him go ahead and address these before I kind of jump into the concerns I have.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Jenny and Vishnu, for coming back and explaining some of the concerns that we were actually discussing during our private session. Just to lay out basically where we're at this point. As far as my client's main concern, it's the short-term cash available in order to keep the business afloat. And all this talk about a joint venture and the future relationship, it all sounds amazing. And I do believe that both of the companies can really work together and breed a strong relationship going forward and a strong business going forward. But the main concern that we had was my client is struggling to make sure to pay payroll at the moment with his employees coming back in November. That being said, you know, being the lawyer that I am, all I do is think about liability and just I'm always worried about Martin and making sure he's not tying himself into something that he might not be able to, you know, perform on in the future. To reframe that a little, I guess to make it simple is, you know, I don't want my client to join in on this joint venture and be responsible for this $15,000 a month payment when he's worried about, you know, paying his employees. So if we could make sure that some of that loan is being used towards the November to January period that we had discussed earlier, that liability concern is much less in my mind because of the fact that we can get to January, and then once we're in January, the loan will come through from the government, and Martin will have a little bit more leeway and more access to funds to help out with that loan repayment. But just to summarize what I heard from you coming back, you said that the joint venture would be a geographical and operational expansion with a local focus on basically local tours and getting around closer to home rather than, you know, exotic locations. I do believe that that's a really good idea going forward with the way everything is happening. The longer trips in exotic locations are quite the concern for people right now. And then you mentioned that you have a large number of credit card transactions that might occur in the future and you want to use for expansion of the business and to be able to finance these operations from, the client perspective. I do think that's a really good idea as well. And to answer Vishnu's question about the percentage that Martin usually collects, it's at 2% commission for what he normally does charge on those credit card transactions to finance them. So hopefully that answers some of your questions in regards to that. But again, just trying to let you guys know where our main concern is right now. I believe there's a lot of really good ideas for future relationship and for future business. I just want to make sure that the short-term goals are met as well.
And
Yes, thank you, Cameron. I think before I give Vishnu and Martin the room back, I think that it is important that we take stock of the agenda. I think that we have discussed a lot on the matter of long-term partnerships. Charles, actually, maybe we could have a look at the agenda again.
Yeah, one moment.
Yep. So while Charles gets to that, all right. So we were planning to discuss short-term survival and long-term flourishing. On the matter of short-term survival, I think Martin has been quite clear that his concerns are for the wages of his staff from November to January. And I feel that we have actually kind of entered into discussions about long-term plans with this joint business venture. Actually, I may need some clarification about that. And if the parties are amenable, before Martin and Vishnu start talking again, could I perhaps have a short caucus with Jenny and Vishnu? All right, I see nodding heads. I think that's the good part about Zoom. All right, so again, before we enter into our private session, I would just like to again summarize what has been discussed. The offer at the table currently is about this joint business venture and how this joint business venture can actually possibly solve the short-term problems faced by Martin. Now, again, since I already gave Vishnu and Jenny the homework, I think Martin and Cameron, it is fair that you would also just reflect a bit about how you intend to move forward and how you feel about how this session has moved on. Now, perhaps Brian, could you help move Martin and Cameron into a private breakout room?
Sorry, Brian, it looks like you're talking, but you are muted, so we can't hear you.
Sorry. Sending Martin and Cameron into the breakout room now. 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. All right, so thank you, Vishnu and Jenny, for waiting for all of this to be settled. Now, before we begin, I'd just like to reassure you that everything said here is confidential, and we will not tell the other side what has been discussed here unless we have your explicit permission to do so. Is that okay? All right. Now, this caucus will last for approximately 7 minutes, so I think we have to make our time worth. So I think I'll just jump right in. Maybe you could share with us how you feel like you could perhaps meet the interests of Martin with regards to the short-term concerns that he raised.
Okay, I think I will respond to this. Jolene, sorry if I wasn't being clear earlier to Martin. We had assured them that once they agreed to the joint business venture, the loan that we had gotten from the Portuguese government would have been available to them as well. Now, obviously, how exactly this loan is going to be spent, because now it's going to be divided across two businesses essentially. That those details are going to need to be hashed out. I'm not sure if we have time in the current session, but my main, I think Jenny's main aim in this discussion is to work towards an agreement to the idea before we go into any details. And I was discussing with Jenny when you were having the private caucus with Martin earlier, and in essence, what Cameron raised about how the loan was going to be spent was exactly what Jenny had assured me of, meaning in the short term, when they are faced with such a lot of financial difficulty, especially in the months of November to January, if I'm not wrong, we would have to in a sense help them out, and then after that, as they get more and more financially comfortable, then they would also reciprocate the help in terms of helping us bear the burden of the interest. So
All right.
if I wasn't clear, I will be more than willing after this caucus, or Jenny will be more than willing to explain it to them.
All right, that's great. So just playing the devil's advocate here, do you foresee any long-term or sustainability issues with your plan now, given that COVID is quite unpredictable? We don't know when this will ease up.
Jenny, do you want to take this question?
Yeah. So in terms of relationship, I do not see any problem with this partnership going forward, given that Martin and myself, we've known each other for a long while, and there's that base level of trust over there. And with regards to more realistic concerns of the effects of the current pandemic, I personally feel that Vishnu and I have given a lot of in-depth research and analysis of the business figures, and that is precisely how we came to the conclusion that we wanted to target local markets because tourism has dropped, and this is precisely addressing the concern you have, which is how the COVID situation has impacted our environment, and we as business owners constantly have to adapt. So that being said, I believe this partnership will be fruitful because I want nothing but the best for Martin, and I would say in both the short term and long term, this not only ensures our mutual survival, but it ensures that we could possibly stand to profit from this dire situation, and perhaps even mend our personal relationship moving forward. So Vishnu, if I missed anything out, could you be so kind as to fill the gaps in for me?
No, Jenny, you did not miss anything out, but perhaps I may give some embellishments in the form of more concrete evidence, maybe. Jolene, you mentioned what would be the long-term sustainability of our business venture in the face of the erratic nature of the virus. And yes, you are right, the virus is erratic, but I think we can see a clear pattern in the countries that have, in the way they have dealt with this virus. And so we have gathered a few figures of the number of infections a country has, the number of deaths it has. And this gives us some idea of, firstly, their medical infrastructure, their openness towards letting their citizens, for lack of a better phrase, come out and play. And so these would, we don't have a finalized list of countries that we would like to expand to, but obviously, since if Martin is agreeable, then this would be in our discussion with him, because I'm sure he may have some preferences for the list of countries as well. But these are our considerations.
All right, so just to summarize what has been discussed in this caucus, of course, I wanted to ask a few more questions, but I see that we are running short of time. So I believe that we have discussed in terms of business reality, that Jenny is planning to target local markets to alleviate the uncertainty that COVID is going to bring. And Vishnu, you have very kindly provided some scientific numerical backing to that. Is there anything else you would like to maybe just quickly bring up before we move on?
Yes, perhaps if I may just address the point of confidentiality. In the spirit of transparency and trust and partnership between the two businesses, everything that we have said in this meeting, I think I would be comfortable sharing. Jenny, are you comfortable sharing, more importantly?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Vishnu. I think you, for one, would definitely know the circumstances behind this bond that Martin and I have. So yeah, he couldn't have said it better. I'm willing to share anything that has been said in this conversation.
Is there anything that you would like us as mediators to raise? Well, they're back here now, so I suppose we will continue this conversation with them.
Yes, if I
Jenny and Vishnu, would you like to raise anything?
Actually,
Yes,
just to help everyone take stock, before we entered into caucus with Jenny and Vishnu, we were discussing Martin and Cameron's short-term concerns about the wages. At this point, Jenny and Vishnu has given me and Charles permission to share some of their answers to these issues. So regarding the short-term wage problems, Vishnu and Jenny have raised again that the joint venture with the 25 million loan that they have taken out, they are more than willing to split it with Martin and your company to help pay off the wages from November to January. Is that something that, Martin, you would feel comfortable with?
Something that I actually wanted to address that we thought about, we took, your advice and thought about this in the caucus. And we kind of came up with another idea that kind of goes off of the joint venture. Because I'm not sure if you mentioned in the caucus, but my concern with the $15,000, interest payment every month kind of thing, being tied to that, especially this being our first conversation, I don't want to jump into an agreement. I want to look at it and continue this discussion with you. But an idea I had, because I feel like I have talked a lot about my interests, and I did mention that your interests are very important to me as well, Jenny, and helping your business. So, a possible solution is if we did use the credit card platform that I have, my traditional fee is roughly 2%. Instead of just splitting the joint venture or the 25 million or however we would go about that, and putting myself on the hook for the 15,000, I'm willing to split my percentage with you. So we go 1%, basically into perpetuity. So however well we can both grow the business, the better off we both do. You're going to get 1% of whatever sales we get on credit card purchases. So, hopefully that could at some point cover the interest on its own. And then as far as the short term, I just wanted to address the, I just basically need to find a way to, if there's a way to get the $2 million now in the short term, as I'm guaranteeing you that we're going to have this trip. So I will pay the $2 million again, and then we can work out the prices and all that on the recurring trips in the future. But again, my biggest thing is the potential sharing of that percentage fee. I think that could be great for not only my business, but as well as yours. So I just wanted to throw that out there now in the interest of time, something that we can both, take back to our councils and look at our books and think about before we're able to meet again, because hopefully we're able to meet again soon.
All right, Martin, thank you so much. I think that, that is very heartening to hear. And we will definitely schedule another meeting, and this will definitely be on the agenda coming up. I just want to clarify quickly, I am not a businesswoman. I'm a lawyer, so I pick out on terms like guarantee. So I know that you mentioned briefly just now that you have given Vishnu and Jenny some form of guarantee that you will be going forward with the trip with your company. Maybe you could clarify a bit more with me what you mean by guarantee here.
I mean, regardless of when COVID ends or anything like that, I mean, like I said, I love taking my staff on things like this and being active. So, this trip will go It's just all based on when COVID is over and when it's safe to travel. But there's no question that we will be having this trip at some point.
Okay, well, perhaps we can hear from Jenny now. What was your view on what Martin's just offered?
Yes, Martin, thank you for taking the time to really brainstorm and generate new options. And that is basically what mediation is all about. I have a few questions regarding this proposal you have made, and I understand that you have given us a lot of technical terms which a person like me without the financial background that you have might not be able to understand after one hearing. So perhaps could you reframe it for my counsel and I in a more digestible fashion so that I can ensure anything that I am thinking about or perhaps even agreeing to would be exactly what I think it is.
Absolutely. So instead of
If
just
I
like
may, clarify. Sorry, Martin. If I may clarify my client's question, I think we are in particular we are interested to hear essentially what the reason for this 1% split is, because forgive me if this is our inattentiveness, but we are not clear what the catch is. Like, what do you gain out of splitting the 1%, splitting your 2% commission by half?
So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear the first time. My big concern with just jumping into the joint venture is that interest payment that's tied to the end. I don't want to jump into a business and then say come February or March of next year, COVID is still running rampant, then I'm still tied to this $15,000. So I guess in a way what I'm suggesting is more of just like a separate agreement or partnership of some form where there's really no catch. I just don't want to be on the hook for the 15,000. So instead, I kind of want to create an agreement where we create this business opportunity where we both benefit. Yes, I do take a small cut of the credit card sales that I traditionally charge. However, I'm now in another sector where I'm in the business with you, but you also have the opportunity to obtain a 1% fee on every transaction that's charged through a credit card for your business. So it's an additional incentive on your business end as well. And then maybe down the line, if we're able to grow it into something more than just that partnership. But I'm just kind of weary right now, and it's something I'm going to have to think about over the next maybe few weeks and talk with my counsel about just jumping into something that puts me on the hook for $15,000 a month for, I believe you said 20 years, 25 years. That's a long time.
Thank you, Martin, for setting that out so well. Sorry, Vishnu, I'm going to jump in here because we've got about 5 minutes left, and I'm concerned that I suppose now would be a good time to summarize and jot down some points for the meeting that can hopefully happen next time. It seems like this has been a really, really productive meeting, and I'm really happy that everyone's come in with such a collaborative and constructive tone, really, that you've all really come at it with the right attitude. I think that's really worth commending. If I just quickly summarize what's been said. So Jenny, you've talked a lot about this joint venture idea. You've told us about these brilliant opportunities that you've had with the Portuguese loan system and the the Portuguese voucher system and the bank loan that you've come in. And you've come in with some really productive, positive ideas about the way your two businesses can come together. And that's something that I suppose Martin will have to go away and think about. But Martin has expressed some concerns with being on the hook for this loan, as he's put it. And so I think that's something that perhaps both parties go away and think about ways that that loan can be used, but also ways that the liability for that loan can be approached in between now and the next meeting. Martin, you've also talked about the importance of the refund to you, particularly in reference to needing to keep your staff on payroll until January when you'll get these grants from the government. So perhaps that's something that perhaps Jenny can go away and think about ways that could be helped to happen, because it does seem to be in Jenny's interest. Like Martin, you said, you're very interested in this trip still happening just at a later date. And I suppose having those staff that kept on payroll will be productive for doing that. Martin, just now you've brought up this suggestion of sharing the commission from your credit card transactions as part of this joint venture. And that seems to be a really productive idea that tackles your concerns about the liability for the loan. And so I suppose, Jenny, perhaps that's something to go away and think about how you feel about that. Perhaps, Jolene, if you could jump in and if there's anything I've missed and discuss agenda points for a future meeting, if that's something that both parties seem interested in doing.
Yeah, so at this point, like Charles said, we are running short of time. So I would just like to quickly summarize what Charles has said. So a lot has been covered today, and I congratulate all of you for the creativity and collaboration that we have seen today. Just to show you the progress that we have made, I think we already have two very good options on the table. One with the joint business venture that will where Jenny and Martin will share the loan of $25 million, and the second option of splitting the credit card commission of 2%. I think these are two things that we will be very excited to hear more and discuss and help you discuss at your next mediation meeting. Is there anything else the parties would like to add?
I just want to say, thank you, Charles and Jolene, for your time, and thank you, Jenny and Vishnu. I think we've made some great progress. And Jenny, the next time you're in London, let me know. Maybe we'll grab some dinner.
I will. Hopefully COVID ends sooner than we think. And perhaps Jolene and Charles, given that Martin does have some short-term issues that he needs answers on, perhaps we could schedule the next mediation session in the coming 2 days. Would that be agreeable?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, my schedule is very open.
Everyone's schedule is very open thanks to COVID. I think we can schedule this via email if that is all right with everyone. All right. Thank you, Jenny and Martin.
Great. So I think